Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to, we're going to be exploring a topic that I think sparks a lot of curiosity. It's the dynamics of attraction, especially between older men and younger women. And we've got some really interesting source material here that digs into the psychology, the why and the how of this kind of pairing. And it even offers some strategies, believe it or not, for older men who are looking to catch a younger woman's eye.
Right, right. And we're going to be we'll be examining all of this through the lens of course, social psychology and relationship dynamics.
So the source material really jumps right into it, doesn't it? It says the most important thing for an older man to project is confidence, but it's not talking about the stereotypical alpha male, loud and boisterous type.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely not. It's much more how can I put it? It's a quieter confidence, right? More mature, self-assured. The source material specifically points to things like strong eye contact, good posture, having a calm tone of voice. And it made me think, are these nonverbal cues even more impactful on younger women specifically? Maybe because maybe subconsciously it speaks to something, a little bit deeper, like a desire for security and stability.
That's interesting. So it's not just about looking confident, but it's more about embodying those qualities that would be attractive to someone at a different stage of life.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like saying, I've got it together. I can handle whatever comes our way.
Right, right. Like you're reliable, you're stable.
And the source material actually gives a really good example. They talk about, um, you know, think about a date, right? And the restaurant messes up the reservation. Now, someone who maybe lacks confidence, they might get flustered or angry. But imagine if you stay calm and you just smoothly take charge.
Yeah.
Right? You find a solution without, breaking a sweat.
Yeah, yeah. That kind of resilience can be attractive for sure. It shows you can navigate those little curveballs that life throws at you.
Exactly. You're showing, not just telling.
Yeah.
So, we've got confidence. Now, the source then moves on to another big one, emotional intelligence. And they define it as the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, but also to empathize with the emotions of others. And, I've always kind of wondered why that's so important in any relationship, but I think even more so when there's an age gap.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Younger women, maybe they have less relationship experience, and they might be drawn to partners who can offer that emotional stability, that support.
Right. It's like, they're looking for a secure base, a partner who can offer that comfort, that understanding. And the source, they even go so far as to suggest specific phrases, phrases that can really make a difference in demonstrating that emotional intelligence.
Oh, like what?
Like, asking, how does that make you feel? Or what would be most helpful to you right now? It seems simple, right? But these questions can have a big impact because they show that you're listening, you're actively listening, and you're prioritizing her feelings.
Yeah, it's not about jumping in with solutions. It's more about validating her experience.
Right. Now, the source also talks about emotional regulation, especially during, disagreements.
Oh, sure. Yeah, disagreements are going to happen, right?
Of course, of course. But instead of getting defensive, the source recommends using phrases like, I understand your perspective, but I feel differently because...
You're not dismissing her feelings. You're just respectfully expressing your own.
Exactly. And that shows that you're capable of having healthy conflict, which, can be a green flag in any relationship, especially one, maybe where there's an age gap. So we've got confidence, we've got emotional intelligence. Now, the source goes on to talk about building rapport. And here they really highlight the power of humor. They even call it a universal language, right?
Yeah, finding those moments of shared laughter and amusement, it's, I think it's something that we often overlook. We get so caught up in trying to impress someone, we forget to just have fun.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And alongside humor, the source material emphasizes, shared interests.
Yeah.
It acknowledges that, couples with an age gap, they might not have everything in common at first glance, but it really encourages exploring her world, with genuine curiosity.
So even if she's into, a music genre or a hobby that's totally foreign to you, don't dismiss it.
Right? Ask questions.
Yeah.
Show that you're interested in learning more about what makes her her.
That's a great point. It's not about, pretending to be someone you're not. It's about being open to connecting on her level.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly attractive, right?
Yeah.
It shows a youthful spirit and open-mindedness, regardless of your age.
It's funny you say that. I've always wondered why people say, he's got such a young soul. I think it's about that curiosity and openness. Now, speaking of qualities, the source also talks about leadership.
And they're not talking about being, domineering or controlling, right?
No, not at all. It's more about taking guiding interactions with that confidence we were talking about earlier.
Like when you're planning a date.
Yeah. Like instead of passively asking, what do you want to do? They suggest taking the lead and being like, I know this great little cafe downtown. Let's check it out.
Yeah, that's a good example. It shows, you're comfortable making decisions. You're not afraid to take charge.
But it's not about being rigid or inflexible either, right? The source also talks about adaptability and having a backup plan.
Oh, that's crucial, right? Life rarely goes according to plan.
Right.
So, being able to handle those unexpected situations gracefully, that's a real sign of leadership. Let's say, you've planned that cafe date, but you get there and there's a 2-hour wait. Someone who's not adaptable might, panic or get frustrated.
Yeah, but if you just smoothly transition to, a different spot, maybe you suggest grabbing a drink at a bar nearby while you wait, shows you can roll with it, right? You make the best of any situation.
Right, exactly. It shows you're resourceful. Now, that brings us to another point the source emphasizes. Physical presentation. And this is where things can, get a little bit tricky.
Because it's not about trying to look 20 again.
No,
yeah,
definitely not. Trying too hard to look young can actually be a turnoff. It can come across as insecure, maybe even a little desperate. The source emphasizes that, it's really about presenting yourself in a way that reflects self-respect and vitality. So, that means wearing clothes that fit well, flatter your physique, paying attention to grooming, hygiene, and just generally taking care of yourself.
Right. So it's about showing that you value yourself, your well-being.
Exactly. It's not about denying your age. It's about owning it and presenting, that version of yourself.
And a big part of that, I think, is taking care of your health and fitness.
Yeah. Staying active. And speaking of showcasing yourself, the source goes into something I find really interesting, the power of storytelling. It's such a powerful tool for connecting with others. It allows you to share experiences, reveal your personality, maybe even highlight your strengths, but in a subtle way.
Right. It's more engaging than just stating facts.
Oh, absolutely. The source gives the example of, let's say describing a trip to Italy instead of just saying, oh, I went to Italy. Imagine painting a picture, right? With vivid details about the sights, the sounds, the smells. Maybe describe a delicious meal you had or breathtaking view.
So you're drawing the other person into the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that taps into, a deeper psychological need for connection. When you share a story, you're inviting someone into your world.
Yeah.
You're letting them see things from your perspective.
You're creating a shared experience.
Yes. But the source is careful to say that you should use storytelling to highlight positive traits, without bragging.
Okay, so what's the difference then?
Well, I think it's about letting your actions speak for themselves rather than, overtly boasting about accomplishments. Imagine you're, describing a time that you helped someone in need. You're not doing it to pat yourself on the back, You're sharing an experience that reveals your character.
So it's about showing, not telling. Now, the source also touches on a topic that can be a little bit delicate, physical touch.
Ah, yes. The power of touch. It's such an important part of human connection, but it's definitely an area that requires a lot of sensitivity and respect for boundaries.
Yeah.
The source material is very mindful of this, and they emphasize starting with light platonic touches.
Like what?
Like a pat on the back, or maybe a brief touch on the arm to just emphasize a point.
It's like testing the waters, building comfort gradually, and they make it clear that any progression towards anything more intimate should always be consensual, welcomed. But how can someone navigate this aspect of attraction without sending the wrong signals or making someone uncomfortable?
Well, that's where paying attention to body language is just so crucial. You need to be attuned to the other person's cues. Are they leaning in? Do they seem relaxed? Are they open to your touch? Or are they, pulling away, stiffing up?
It's like you're learning to speak their nonverbal language.
Exactly. And if you're ever unsure, it's always better to err on the side of caution. Respect is paramount, especially when it comes to physical touch. Now, the source suggests that as the connection deepens, you can gradually progress to more meaningful gestures like holding hands or a warm hug.
But again, it's all about consent, right?
Absolutely. It's about letting things unfold naturally, allowing the physical intimacy to develop alongside the emotional connection. And that brings us to another important factor that the source highlights: cultural and generational awareness.
This is key, I think, especially when there's an age gap. It's so easy to just assume that, everyone sees the world the same way that we do, but different generations, they have different values, different experiences, different ways of communicating even.
Right, and that's where genuine curiosity comes in. The source gives the example of, maybe showing an interest in a younger woman's favorite show or a social media trend. But how do you do that without seeming like you're trying too hard to be cool?
Yeah, I get what you mean.
I think it comes down to being genuinely interested in understanding her world.
Right.
Don't just, name drop a popular band or try to use, slang you don't understand. Ask questions, listen actively and be open to learning new things.
It's about respecting her perspective, acknowledging that her experiences, her worldview, it might be different from your own.
Exactly. And that kind of open-mindedness, that willingness to connect on her level, that can be incredibly attractive. Shows that you're not stuck in your ways, you're adaptable, and you're willing to grow.
And that brings us to the final element, and maybe the most important one that the source emphasizes: patience.
Patience is truly a virtue, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. Building a meaningful connection takes time. It's not something you can force or rush.
Right. And the source makes a good point that patience really demonstrates respect for the other person's pace.
Yeah.
It allows the relationship to develop organically. Why is this so important when it comes to attracting a younger woman specifically?
Well, I think it shows that you're not just looking for a quick fling or a superficial connection, right? You're interested in building something genuine, something lasting, and you're willing to invest the time and effort to do so.
It's about letting the relationship unfold naturally, without pressure, without expectations, and I think that can be really reassuring, especially for someone who might be wary of an older man's intentions.
Right, exactly. It shows that you're mature, you're emotionally intelligent, and you're confident enough to let things develop at their own pace.
So to kind of wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I think it's safe to say that attracting a younger woman, or anyone for that matter, it's about more than just surface level charm or tricks. It's about being your best self, both internally and externally, and approaching the relationship with authenticity, with respect, and a genuine desire to connect.
I couldn't agree more. It's about understanding the nuances of attraction and recognizing that it's a complex interplay of factors. When we were talking about patience before, it really made me think about how important that is when it comes to navigating those more physical aspects of attraction, like the source material talks about.
Oh, that's a great point. We were just talking about letting things unfold naturally, and I think that applies perfectly to the whole topic of physical touch, right? It can be kind of a tricky area.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when there's an age gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Touch it's such a powerful form of communication, but it's also so personal, and it can be influenced by culture too. The source material, they're very aware of this, and they really stress respect and consent above all else.
Yeah.
They even suggest starting with those light platonic touches.
What do you mean?
Like a brief touch on the arm, maybe just to emphasize a point or a pat on the back, just as encouragement.
Okay, so those are pretty small gestures, but I can see how they could be, important for building that sense of comfort and connection.
Exactly. And thinking about it from a social psychology perspective, those early touches can almost be seen as tests. We're subconsciously trying to gauge the other person's receptiveness, right? Like, are they leaning in or are they pulling away? Do they seem relaxed or are they, tense?
So even those seemingly insignificant touches can give you a lot of information about, how comfortable the other person is.
Exactly. And then as the connection deepens, the source suggests that you can gradually progress to more meaningful gestures, like holding hands or a warm hug. But again, it should always feel natural,
Yeah.
never forced or pressured.
I've always found it fascinating that our bodies have this unspoken language,
Mm.
and touch is a big part of that, right? And I think it's even more important to be aware of that language when there's an age difference, because like you were saying before, different generations might have different comfort levels with touch, different social norms.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's where the source's emphasis on cultural awareness is really key. It's not just about understanding the other person's individual boundaries, but also about recognizing that, our perceptions of what's appropriate are shaped by our culture and by the generation that we grew up in, right?
Right, right. I've heard people say that that trying to understand those cultural differences is just, it's too much work, and it's easier to just stick with people who are more similar to us. But the source seems to be saying that this open-mindedness and this willingness to bridge those gaps can actually be really attractive.
Oh, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Imagine, someone from a different generation making a real effort to understand your world,
Right.
to learn about your interests, to see things from your point of view. That kind of curiosity and open-mindedness can be really refreshing, can it? And attractive regardless of age.
Yeah.
It shows
Yeah.
humility, right?
Yeah.
And a willingness to grow, which are qualities we often associate with emotional intelligence.
That's a really good point. It's like saying, I'm not threatened by our differences. I'm actually intrigued by them. And I think that can be really disarming, especially for someone who might be, used to being judged or stereotyped because of their age.
Yeah, exactly. It's about seeing those differences as opportunities for connection and for growth, not obstacles.
Mhm.
And I think that brings us back to one of the most important themes we've talked about today, patience.
You're so right. The source material keeps coming back to that idea that patience is key. Not just when it comes to physical touch, but in navigating, this whole dance of attraction, especially when there's an age gap.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that building a genuine connection, it just takes time, right? You have to let go of the need to rush things and just allow the relationship to unfold organically.
And that goes hand in hand with what we were discussing earlier about emotional intelligence. A person who's emotionally intelligent understands that, forcing things, it rarely works, especially in matters of the heart.
Right. It's about trusting the process, being present in each moment, and being vulnerable enough to let the connection develop naturally.
I was just thinking about how this idea of patience relates to something else that the source material mentioned, the power of storytelling.
Oh, that's an interesting connection. How so?
Well, the source encourages sharing stories that highlight positive traits, but without bragging. And I was thinking that ties into patience because it suggests that revealing who you are is a gradual process. It's not about trying to, impress someone with a highlight reel of your accomplishments. It's more about, allowing them to get to know you over time through shared experiences and those authentic moments of connection.
Yeah, I see what you mean. That's a beautiful insight, actually. And it really speaks to the importance of authenticity and vulnerability in building real attraction. It's about, letting go of the need to perform, to put on a show, and just allowing yourself to be seen for who you truly are.
And I think that kind of authenticity can be really attractive, can't it? Because it shows a level of self-awareness and emotional maturity. It's like saying, I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I trust that you'll appreciate me for who I am, flaws and all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that level of self-acceptance and vulnerability, it's alluring.
Yeah.
Because it creates space for the other person to do the same.
Right.
Right? It invites them to let go of their masks and their pretenses and just connect on a deeper level.
It's interesting because we tend to think of attraction as being all about those surface level things, right? Looks, status, accomplishments. But what we're really talking about is something much deeper. It's about connecting with someone on a soul level, I guess you could say, recognizing and appreciating who they are beyond, all the superficial stuff.
That's beautifully put. And I think that kind of connection, it's something that we all yearn for, regardless of age. It's about finding someone who sees us, who understands us, who accepts us for who we truly are.
And that brings us back to that initial question, right? The dynamics of attraction between older men and younger women. It seems like the source is really saying that while, age might be a factor, it's not the only thing that matters.
Exactly. Exactly. It's about so much more than just the number of years someone has lived, right? It's about the qualities they embody, the experiences they've had, the lessons they've learned, and ultimately how they make the other person feel.
It's about that spark, that feeling of really getting each other
Yeah.
that goes beyond age and connects you on a deeper level.
And that's something we can all relate to when you say, no matter who we're attracted to or what stage of life we're in.
Absolutely. It's about that human experience of connection, that desire to be seen, to be understood, and to be loved for who we are. It's funny, right? We started this deep dive talking about older men attracting younger women, but we've kind of ended up having a much bigger conversation about just, attraction in general.
I think you're right. We've really gotten into some fundamental stuff, haven't we? Things like confidence and emotional intelligence, vulnerability, even the whole idea of storytelling, and of course, respecting boundaries and being aware of cultural differences. Those are all things that matter in any relationship, no matter the age or gender.
Yeah, it's like we found this blueprint for building connections, something that goes beyond the specifics of this one dynamic we're talking about.
Yeah, and one of the most valuable things about this whole deep dive is that it's not about reducing attraction to a bunch of rules or techniques. It's more about understanding the psychology, the emotions behind it all.
It's about being intentional, approaching relationships with awareness, realizing that real connection, it has to go both ways, right? It's like a dance where both people are showing up authentically and are ready to meet in the middle.
Exactly, and even when we do everything right, things don't always work out the way we hope they will. Rejection, it's part of life, right? And
Right.
it doesn't mean we're not worthy or valuable.
That's such an important point, and it's easy to forget, especially when we're talking about this topic of attraction. We get caught up in the idea of winning someone over, but at the end of the day, attraction has to be mutual. There has to be compatibility. Sometimes, no matter what we do, that spark just isn't. It's just not there.
And that's okay. It's a chance for us to learn more about ourselves.
Yeah.
Maybe rethink what we're really looking for in a partner.
Right. We can grow from those experiences.
Exactly. Relationships, they're a journey, not a destination. Sometimes the most important lessons are the ones we learn from those paths not taken.
So as we wrap up here, what are some things that our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is to remember that attraction, it's complicated. It's not just about, looks or how successful you are. It's about those deeper qualities,
Yeah.
The connections we make.
And approaching relationships with authenticity, right? Respect.
Being patient, being open, being, vulnerable, letting go of the need to control everything.
And understanding that rejection happens. It's not a reflection of our worth.
It's just a chance to learn and to grow.
Well said. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive. I hope you've enjoyed exploring this topic with us.
We hope you've gained some insights into this whole idea of attraction, all the dynamics involved.
And remember, building meaningful connections, it's a journey. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.